this evening, and the kids have started Psalm 139, verse 13 through 18, where we'll be. But here we are, and the kids have started school. They started school back in probably a week to 2 weeks into school, and this message is really for them as they start back to school, and they start, even at their young age, start trying to figure out who they are. We're living in a day where these kids and these young folks, they're living in a different age, and they're coming up in a different age that we came up in. And they got something called social media that we didn't have to deal with. And you think about social media and things, and the deal with social media is simply this. When you get a picture of somebody on social media and they share a picture of what they've got going on, all that is kind of the greatest hits or the greatest things that they have going on, isn't it? I mean, you're just seeing the best highlights of what they've going on. And the problem is you start looking at that and you start seeing that and you start thinking, man, everything they do is working out for the good, and here I am, I can't put one foot in front of the other. But that's what social media is. You're putting the best forward. And you've got to realize that this is for all ages, really. But here's the thing. When I was younger, I guess to know your status, you had the nice shoes. It always boiled down to shoes, wasn't it? I saw something posted online the other day. It said, back when I wanted to show off, I didn't post it on Facebook. I went to the pencil sharpener, sharpen your pencils, and show off your new shoes, didn't you? That's what you did in school. You went to sharpen your pencils, walk around. You went through the rows and took the long route to show off those shoes. But shoes was a big thing. But now, here we've got social media and the internet. We've got Facebook. And when you look at Facebook, it seems like everybody's trying to compete with others. Somebody might put this car up, or somebody else got a better car. Somebody might go on this vacation. Somebody else got to go on their vacation because they went on vacation. It's always trying to equal the other, try to one up the other. And social media is a lot to do with that. And this message is not about social media. But with school starting, here you are, starting school for the kids, young folks. You got new teachers, new friends, some of you. Harper started a new school. And you adults know what we're talking about, even starting a new job. But here's the message this evening, and it's 2 words, and it's be you. That's what the Lord laid on my heart is just be you. No matter what you see on social media that somebody else has going on, you be you. No matter what's going on at school, you be you. I'm going to say this phrase 3 times this message. It's this. You do realize you are all you can be. Samuel ain't but one Samuel. You're Samuel. Don't try to be nobody else because you're Samuel. If you try to be somebody else, ain't gonna be no Samuel. You gotta be Samuel. There ain't but one Harper. She's gotta be Harper. There ain't but one Samuel. There ain't but one of all of us. This goes for the adults. Ain't no use to try to be somebody else. Actually tries to remind me, you go through those phases in high school. You go through phases. You try to be something. I don't know what I was trying to be when I was in high school. I shaved my head there one time. I don't know what I was doing. Maybe you start losing your hair and you're like, well, I was just shaving my head. I needed hair, and now I need hair, and I shave it. Then I let my hair grow out long, and I had curly hair for a while. It's like we're trying to figure out, it's like you spend your whole life figuring out who you're trying to be. Then you get to the point where you have no hair, and then you just don't care who anybody thinks who you are, and you're just yourself, but then you don't have no hair to mess with. But there's only you. You are the only one that can be you. And you can't be anybody else but you, and you is enough. You yourself and you being you is enough. And the Lord directed my heart here to Psalm 139 this morning, and specifically I do want to look at verses 13 through 18. Now, this commentary that I was studying behind, and I honestly just seen this outline in it, and just wrote that down. But I want to give this outline because I think it's a neat visual of what's going on in Psalm 139. In Psalm 139, it can be broken down into 5 parts. One is be aware. God examines you and He knows you intimately. And that's verses 1 through 6. Next one is to be mindful. You cannot escape or hide from God's presence. That's verses 7 through 12. Be thankful. That's Psalm 139, 13 through 18. Be alert. That's Psalm 139, 19 through 22. And be repentant. That's Psalm 139, verses 23 through 34. How God is asked to revive you. But with that being said, I'm telling you, I read all those and said, man, that'd be a good study. Maybe eventually we might could go through those 5 and hit those one Wednesday night. I don't know. We'll just pray about it. But the message for tonight is on this third section of just being thankful is what this commentary defined this section as. But I'm titling it Just Be You. And again, I done say it, and I'll say it again. You are all that you can be. You're the only one you can be. You are you. You can't be nobody else but you. And that's enough for you just to be you. You got to be you. We know this is the case because of Psalm 139. God created you, and that's what we're going to read here in this text, verses 13 through 18. God created you. Not only that, God's got a thought. He's got you on His mind this evening. That's going to help all of us. Don't matter if you're a child or an adult. But you know, growing up, you heard that Gatorade commercial, be like Mike. Everybody's wanting to be like Mike, wasn't they? Everybody wanted to be like Mike. I got the Jordans, and there's some things a fat white man ain't going to be. He's going to be like Mike, isn't he? All I'm going to be is what God's called me to be. It ain't going to be like Mike. But I hope by the end of this message that you do realize who you are is who God's made you to be, and you just be yourself. And honestly, I don't know a better thought for young folks today is you just be yourself. Don't try to be the Hollywood celebrity. You might not ever be that. Don't be the athlete. You might not ever be that. Don't be whatever's popular. You know, you see children, they'll wear, one day they're the cowboy, one day they're dressed up like the gangster or something. They don't know what they want to be. Let's just be who we are and be what God's made us to be. Give you 3 things out of this text, and what's interesting to me is each of these 3 things are coupled with 2 verses. There's 6 verses total, so 2 verses for each point, and we'll be done this evening. First thing I see here in the text, verse 13, is He made you. You can be you. That's the title of the message, is be you because He made you. I said God made you this evening. You got to realize these kids in this day that we live, they live day after day. This is on a side note, just a minute. Is these kids live day after day, and some of these kids are going to live their whole life that's not going to value the fact that God made them. In other words, they're never going to hear that in society. They're never going to hear that God made them and that you are a baby and God knows you all the way from your mother's womb. These kids are going to grow up in a world where they're going to hear something that's opposed to the fact that you are His and He made you all the way in your mother's womb. That's what the society says. They go against all that. But here's the thing. Psalm 139, verse number 13, look what it says. For thou hast possessed my reins. The word possess means erect or create. In other words, the Lord has created us. The Lord is the one that lifts us up. The Lord's the one that creates us. That same word is used in Genesis 14 and 19. It says possessor of the heaven and the earth. He possessed my reins, but He's also the possessor of heaven and earth. In Genesis 14:22, He's the possessor of heaven and earth. Meaning God created it all the way down to the heavens and the earth, but He also created you. And you better realize this evening, if He created you and made you and formed you, be you. Just be who God created because He created you. The word reins here in this verse, it says, for thou hast possessed my reins, is the word kidney. I found that interesting. The word kidney. And He's talking about the inward parts of man. So God made you, and God made you all the way from the most inward part of you. God made you. And He made you free from the very depth of your being, and He made you to be you. You say, preacher, when did this start? When did God make me? Was it when He saved me? Did He make me? No, look at verse 13. Here's when He made you. He says, thou hast covered me in my mother's womb. The word cover means to intertwine or to weave. Sounds a lot like somebody having a baby, how that baby grows, how that baby develops, how that baby matures. God is the one that makes it all work. I'll tell you, is it not miraculous, the fact of life and how a baby even develops in a mother's womb? It's amazing. But God's got His hand on that. Don't ever forget that. God made us, God put us together, and God made us in that womb before you was ever born. God made you. Before you was ever given a name, God made you. So I believe this. You can be you because guess what? God made you anyway. He made you all the way since the beginning. Before you was ever born, God made you and God knew you. Look at this text, verse number 14, the next verse. It says, I will praise thee. Barnes' commentary says this, I will not merely admire. Listen to this. You've got to hear this. Verse 14, I will praise thee. Harper, you listen? It says this. I'm not saying you're not. I'm just saying listen. Look at the Barnes' commentary. I want you to hear this. I will not merely admire what is so great and marvelous, but I will acknowledge in public manner as wise and holy and good, as entitled to honor and love and gratitude. You say, what is he saying? Well, it's for the kids. So listen to this. What he's saying, let me read that verse again, verse 14, it's the first of it. He says, I will praise thee. Why is he saying that you will praise you? Well, that's coming from the most inward being. In other words, you're acknowledging it. It's not that you just see it and say, yeah, that's it. You're actually acknowledging the fact that it's coming out of you. It's showing out of you. That's why I was saying, Harper, you listen, because every time she sings, and every time she gets in front of church and sings, and every time the choir comes up and you sing, and every time that you maybe have a testimony, or any time you tell what God has done, what you're doing is you're praising me. You're admiring what's so great. You're admiring what's so marvelous. And you're acknowledging in a public manner. It ought to be public. That's praise. It ought to be public. Well, I do it privately. Well, you're not praising. Praise is in a public manner, and we ought to show who God is. In other words, what is going on the inside is showing out and coming out on the outside. So He made you. He possessed your reins. He made you and formed you all in that mother's womb, verse 13 saying, but when He made you, verse 14, to praise. Look what else it says. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Fearfully means to fear or have reverence or revere. In other words, the meaning here is to produce fear or reverence toward God. In other words, in a Roman Sunday school study that we've done in the past in Sunday school, we said this. You're made in the image and the likeness of God. In other words, to abandon God, to go the other direction, is to acknowledge there's a God and to go against God. You have to acknowledge there's a God. You have to defy that God. You have to turn the other way and go the other direction. Now, I know that's hard to hear this evening. How's that so? Why do you think all these people that's going the other way are so against God? Because they done made that decision to go against God. It's not good enough to just go a different direction and to go with a different lifestyle and let that be them. But they're against God as well because they turned against God and they want you to be against God because they know they're unhappy. But we're fearfully made. It says, I'll praise you. We're fearfully made. It says we're wonderfully made. Wonderfully means we're separate. You know, we're here to give God glory. We're here to give Him honor. And we're separate. Last part of this verse says, and marvelous are thy works, and thy soul knoweth right well. Marvelous works is talking about the works and the wonder that He's done. Now, we've got to keep this in context. I know God is wonderful. I know God does wonderful works. But let me say this. God is wonderful and God does wonderful works. But He's talking again about creation. I mean, just in creation and the fact that He made you, you be you. He's talking about that. Now think about this. How marvelous is just looking at a newborn baby or holding a newborn baby. I remember seeing Harper when she was first born. That nurse reached her over to me, and I just remember looking down. Hey, didn't nobody tell me to do this. There wasn't nobody train you to do this. But I just cried. That's the first time you see your little one, that's all I could do. Just a flood of emotion. That's what he's talking about. It's marvelous are thy works. It's something that's just so marvelous. You ever been on the parkway and look out and see the beautiful sky and the beautiful landscape? That's marvelous. It's his works. It's just amazing, the works of God. But he made us. He made all that. He made that baby. He makes it all. So be you because he made you. That's the first point that I see. I told you the second point will come from the next two verses. I see first that he made you. You can be you because you were made by God. Don't you ever forget that God made you. There'll be a crowd that says you come from a monkey. I better take it. I'm going to stop here a minute. I got to think about that. If we come, let's just think about it. If you come, I probably don't need to go this route, by the way. Because I was just thinking about this today. I said, if you come from a monkey, and there's still folks coming from monkeys, why during that COVID was they not trying to give all the monkeys shots and try to keep monkeys from catching because they're spread? Because we come. I don't know. That's a side note. I don't know. You see where my mind goes when I'm trying to study. But he made us. He made us. We didn't come from no monkeys. He made us. Okay? Next. He sees who we are. He sees who we are. That's what verse 15 says. It says, my substance was not hid from thee when I was made in secret. The word substance means power, might, strength of the body. In other words, he's speaking of the insides. When I looked this up, it's talking about the skeletal system or the inside of the body. It's stuff that's hid. It's not seen in the open, but he sees who we are. Aren't you glad that God knows who you are? You can be you because God knows everything about you. He knew that you doubted. He knows that you have fear. He knows that you may hate to speak in public. He knows the things that scare you. But the thing about it is God saved you anyway. You just be you. Don't try to be nothing else because he knows who you are. But he says, my substance was not hid from thee, and I was made in secret. He's talking about what's not seen, but in context of the verse, I'm not trying to get away from that. He's talking about creation. He says, when I was made in secret. The secret's talking about the mother's womb. Hughes, now I was not seen and you was not seen. But we was made in secret. We was made in private, but he's seen you inside that womb. He's seen you. Look at the rest of this verse. He says, and curiously wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. That lowest parts of the earth, again, it's in context here. Say the lowest parts of the earth, that must be hell. No, he's talking about the mother's womb again. It's what he's related to because we're still talking about creation. He created us. He's referring back to that. But look at verse 16. It says, thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect. Thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect. Substance is mentioned here, and it is before we were born. In other words, the eyes saw before we were born, he's seen who we are. He's seen everything about you. It's like saying this. He accepted you and saved you in knowing you were going to fail, knowing you was going to come short, but he saved you anyway. He knows your substance. And it says in this verse, look at verse 16 again, thine eyes did see my substance. His eyes seen us. He's seen everything about us, yet being unperfect. If you're here and you're perfect, he says this, you're unperfect. We're all unperfect. You think sometimes, well, look at that preacher up there. He's perfect. I'm far from perfect. I'm most unperfect here. And that's what he says. We're unperfect. Meaning you and I, in the womb, we were still developing. Sounds a lot like, and that's a totally different message, but this could be a message, is in the womb, he's seen that we were imperfect. He's seen us for what we were going to be. My gosh, don't today he see us for what we're going to be? I'm still growing. I might not be able to be in my mother's womb. I might be born. I might be big. But guess what? I'm still developing. I'm still growing. I'm still not the Christian that I ought to be. I'm not everything that I ought to be. But the Lord, as same way as he saw us in our mother's womb, he's seen our substance when we were in secret in that lowest part of it, when we were still being developed. When he's seen us there, he still sees us today. He still sees us. why does He see us like that? And why does He see us imperfect? And why does He still want to use us even though we're imperfect? Because He sees the master plan. And because He's the architect. Look at verse 16. It says, thine eyes did see my substance, yet being imperfect, in thy book all my members were written. The book here is where it's all recorded. Everything on this earth has a designer or a creator. That guitar had a designer or a creator. This church somehow had a designer or a creator. Everything that exists has a designer or creator. And He's just saying, in the master plan, in the book, where it was written, where everything has a design, everything has an architect, and there's a creator behind it all, because everything has a creator. He sees it all. He knows who we are. And at the end of that verse, look what it says. All my members were written, which in continuous were fashioned, when as yet were none of them. He's likely speaking of our days in our bodies. It's not saying your members were fashioned. A lot of times we use our members to say our parts of our body. He's just saying, hey, it's recorded in this book. And He's all-knowing. He's all-powerful. He knows it all. It's all documented. He knows everything about you. He knows every single hair on your head. He knows when you're going to fail Him. He knows when you're not going to fail Him. He knows when you're going to be obedient. He knows when you're going to be disobedient. He knows it all. And that's where it was written. He's speaking of our days and how He knows everything about us. So see here in the text, number one, He made you. Be you. He made you. Number two, He sees who we are. He sees us for who we are. Nothing's hid from God. There's nothing secret from God. And we're just speaking of just His omniscience, of just how God knows everything. The last thing I see this evening, and this is just as powerful really as these other verses. Look at these last two verses. So this evening, church and older Christian and young Christians, it's for the kids to be you. When you get to school, just be yourself. Be who you are, who God made you to be. Don't try to be everything. We won't be good at everything. We won't. I want to be like Mike, and I ain't like Mike. I don't think of a Mike I might be like. You can probably think of one. It ain't Michael Jordan. But be you because He made you. Be you because He sees who you are. But the last thing is be you because He has these thoughts toward you. You can be you because He's always thinking about you. He's always got His mind on you. And I'm telling you, this really, these last two verses were powerful to me. Look at verse 17. It says, how precious also are thy thoughts unto me. The word precious means valuable, precious, or prized. So what He's doing, what this is saying is His thoughts have value. You can be you because He's got valuable thoughts towards you. He's thinking valuable things towards you. You're precious to Him. You mean something to Him. He knows you. And this is talking about God's thoughts and how He knows you, and they're precious to Him. But I want you to notice this in verse 17. How precious are also thy thoughts unto me. I don't know about you, but if me or you was writing this book, this Bible, we would probably say, how precious are thy thoughts of me. How are your thoughts of me? But I noticed here it was unto me. And I read that and I said, man, that's weird. Why would He say unto me? And I think it's simply this. See, you and I are not always the valuable, precious thing that we ought to be. We're not always valuable. We're not always precious. We're not. And if we read it the way we like to write this Bible, we would say how precious also are thy thoughts of me. You're thinking of me and you're thinking of how precious. You're thinking of how valuable that I am. But yet it says unto me. And see, here's the thing. God don't look at you for who you are. He looks at us through the blood of Jesus and He sees His Son's blood been applied to our heart. So if you're saved, it ain't about you anyway. You just be you because He sees the blood of Jesus on you, and that makes you as valuable as you'll ever be. We're not valuable because we are who we are. We're valuable because of who He is. I'm going to tell you this, and I say it all the time here. I'm the least likely of people I'll be up here preaching. I'm totally. Yeah, we have several people up here before me. I'm no preacher. I don't like public speaking. Here I am, a preacher and teacher, but that ain't who I am. I don't like it. I don't like getting in front of people. But it's all about who He is, and let Him use you, and people see Him through us. But look at what it says in verse 17 to end. How precious are thy thoughts. He's got precious thoughts unto us. It's unto us because they're not of who we necessarily are, but it's unto us because of who He is. But then look what it says. Oh God, how great is the sum of them. The word great speaking of how powerful or how numerous that they are. Now listen to this. We hear all the time that He loves us. We hear all the time that He's precious to us. That we're precious to Him and He loves us and He cares for us. We hear that all the time. But guess what? We get accustomed to that. We get accustomed to it. And it's like it don't resonate with us. How precious are those thoughts, and how numerous are those thoughts that He has for us. And some of you sitting here, yeah, He thinks of us a lot. I'm ready to go to the house. So here's what the Bible does, and here's what the psalmist does here in this text. Is he's wanting you to understand how precious his thoughts are. So he gives you an illustration, because he knows just saying it one time ain't going to cut it. For me to say this evening, you be you, yeah, I'll try to be me, let's go to the house. No, you're valuable to him, yeah, I'm going to be valuable. He's got thoughts of him, yeah, he thinks of him. Well, he really drives this home, his thoughts of you. Look at verse 18. He gives an illustration here. He says, if I should count them, they are more than the number, than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. I'm going to say this, it's very similar. We hear the word sand, and I'm going to say this. Gosh, it'd be a good illustration if I just had some sand. I cut them sandbags open probably. If I had a cup of sand and handed it to somebody at the start of this service, and I said for you to count how many grains of sand is in that cup while I'm preaching, and when I get done, you tell me how many grains of sand they are, you'd never get to the bottom of it. You'd never know how many sand. But here's the thing. He says, and this is what stood out to me, and my mouth dropped. I had to stop studying, and I said, I'm done. But here's the thing. He says his thoughts are more numerous or more numbered than the sand. Well, we also think this. It's more than just a cup, and I know what's going through your mind because it's what's going through my mind. You walk out on the beach, and you see sand, right? That's what you're thinking. You're thinking of the beach, white sands, all that sand, all the way this way, and all the way this way. That's the way his thoughts are of it. Now, if you tried to number them, and you tried to count them, there's no way you could count them. There's no way you could number them all. That's a lot of grains of sand. And in context of this verse, if I could count them, they're more than the number of sand. What's he talking about? Verse 17, how precious are the thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them. How great are those thoughts? How great are the sum of those thoughts? How can I put it in words? Oh, I'm going to use sand as an example. God thinks to you as much as the grains of sand. Now, if I was to give you a cup, that's more thoughts that I deserve right there. But then you think of the beach, up and down the beach, that's a lot of thoughts. I mean, that's a lot. I don't know how many grains of sand would be just there on one coast or one beach. But I got to thinking as I studied, and I don't know about you, but I started thinking about this. You do realize the sand doesn't stop where the ocean starts. The sand continues from the coast of one continent to the coast of the next continent. And you think about the lowest, deepest, darkest point in this ocean, in the ocean floor and underwater, that's sand too. All that sand. And he's saying here that there's more in number. I can't even number those in verse number 18. They're more in number. It's more in number than the sand. I can't even count the sand. You couldn't count the sand. I can't even fathom how much sand that is, but that's how much God thinks about you. That's what Psalm 139:18 saying. He's referring to 17, how precious are the thoughts unto me, O God, how great is the sum of them. And if I should count them, they are more than the sand when I'm awake and I'm still with thee. So we'll close with this. Do you think you could be you? Do you think you ought to just be you? I believe so. I mean, if he thinks that much about you, as all the grains of sand that's on the face of this earth, how in the world, or why in the world, would I try to be somebody else? And sometimes as a preacher, you say, man, I want to be that person. I want to preach like that person. All I can be is me. And that's all I can be. I mean, I wish I could be, but that's all I can be. Why would I want to be anything else, though? If he thinks about me as much as the grains of sand, and that's how precious his thoughts are, I don't need to be nobody else anyway. That's good enough for God, but it ought to be good enough for me, too. And I believe from our creation, I believe what this text has said, from verse 13 to 18, from our very conception, from our creation, it's enough to say, I'm going to be me, you just be you. God knows everything about you. He formed you. He intertwined it all. He made it all. I mean, He knows that you came from the dust of the earth, that man did. And He knows everything about you. Why try to change who you are? Just be you. And if you and I ever think that we've got to be something different, I think we need to just read verse 18 again. Is if I should count them, they're more than the number than the sand. When I weigh, I'm still with thee. I don't know, I didn't really catch the end of this verse, but I think it might be saying this just on the fly here. It's when I'm awake, I'm still with thee. In other words, you count all them grains of sand. It's going to take you a long time to count them grains of sand. You start counting them and you're going to fall asleep. But guess what? When you wake, He's still with you. You're not going to be able to count them all. But that's the God that He is. And you just be you. I'm going to end with this. Third time I said this. Is you are all you can be. That's who you are. You be you. You look in the mirror and be proud of what you see in the mirror. You be you. But you can't tell nobody else. You can't be nobody else, but you can't be. You can try your best to be somebody else, but you're always going to be who that is. And that you is enough. So just be you. And that's what that text is saying. I know it's saying a lot about being formed in that mother's womb, but I believe this. I believe when He formed us in that mother's womb, when we were a baby, and before we ever was born, before we ever cried, before we ever sinned, before we ever come forward, He knew everything about us. And He said, I love them. I love them. Love them enough to die for them. They just need to be themselves. Be them, and you worry about everybody else. It seems like we're living in a day where everybody's questioning their identity and they're trying to be different things. They don't know who they're going to be. And I know growing up, you're trying to figure out who you are. Teenagers trying to figure out who they are. I know some adults trying to figure out who they are. They are. Let's be honest. But you just be you. Be who God's called you to be. That's all you can be. That's all we all ought to be. Preacher, teacher, whatever it is. Teacher down at the school, mechanic, retiree, whatever, firefighter, accountant, school, a student in school, whatever it is, you just be you. Be you, be you, be you. That's the message here this evening. Your Heavenly Father, Lord, I'm thankful for the picture you showed us and painted us of how we're just formed in that mother's womb, Lord, and how you've intertwined things and you had thoughts of us and you had plans for us. Just like that chief architect, it was all designed in a book. You are the designer. You are the creator. And Lord, I just pray that you've seen something tonight. I pray that you was able to speak to them tonight and help them and see that they don't have to be anything else. We could have went to the back room and we could have done a little game or something, but I felt like that's what you want us to do this evening. It's just send a message from young to old. Is just be you. Be who God's called you to be. And if your weakness is just it's all that you've got and you don't have much to give, just be you and give all that you can give. Just be what you can be. As I studied, Lord, and as I thought, the one thing that crossed my mind is it seems like we spend our whole life trying to figure out who we are. And then we get to the point we figure out who we are, and then our life is nearly over. But Lord, even at a young age, I pray that you plant the seed of this word in these kids' heart, and they just realize that who they are is pleasing to you. We do have faults and we do have failures. And I'm not saying live how we want, do how we want. But I'm just saying, as long as we try to be the best that we can be, that's all we can be. Lord, I love you and I thank you. And Lord, I thank you for everyone that come out tonight. I just pray that they just be themselves as they leave these double doors. In Jesus' name.